Title of the first section of notes is factoring. Ax squared plus bx plus c. Two definitions for the section. First definition is multiply. A times c. And the second definition, we're going to use factor by grouping. These questions will be similar to the diamond method or the x problems we solved, x squared plus bx plus c. Difference is we're going to have a number a or a coefficient in front, so we're going to have to multiply a times c. We're also going to use factor by grouping, which we did in the previous section. First problem today is 2n squared plus 15n plus 7. First step is we're going to multiply a times c. A again is the number in front of the variable, in this case 2, and c is the last number, which is 7. So multiplying 2 times 7 would be 14. What we're going to do is draw the x, or the diamond like we did in the other problems, and instead of 7 on top of the x, we're going to do 2 times 7, which is 14, and that number goes on top of the x. Anytime you have a coefficient in front, you have to multiply a times c. The middle number 15 still goes on the bottom. And just like before, we have to find two numbers that multiply, they get 14, and two numbers that add to get 15. Those two numbers would be 14 and 1. 14 times 1 is 14. 14 plus 1 is 15. Another difference on this problem, when you have a coefficient in front, from here the answer is not going to be n plus 14, n plus 1. That's only the answer if you don't have a coefficient. If you have a coefficient, you have to do factor by grouping. What we're going to do is rewrite the question, 2n squared. But instead of 15n, we're going to break it up using these two numbers, 14 and 1. We'll change it to 14n plus 1n. So it's still 15n, 14 plus 1 is 15, but we're using the two numbers we found earlier. The plus 7 also comes down. From here, once you have 4 terms, now we can factor by grouping to get our final answer. Factor by grouping, if you remember, you look at the first two terms and last two terms and take out what they have in common. For example, 2 and 14, 2 goes into both of those. They both have the same letter n, so you can factor out 2n. 2 divided by 2 would be 1, or it cancels out. N squared, factoring out an n, you'll just be left with n. Plus sign comes down. 14 divided by 2 would be 7, and the n factors out. Next two terms, we have 1 and 7. Only number that goes into 1 and 7 would be 1. And again, we can't take a n out because a 7 does not have an n. Dividing each of these by 1, it would stay the same as n plus 7. Keep in mind from the previous section, both parentheses must match. If they don't match, you have to go back and check your work. If they do match, that's your first answer, n plus 7. And your second parentheses is what's on the outside, 2n plus 1. So your final answer for factoring 2n squared plus 15n plus 7 would be n plus 7 and 2n plus 1. Second question, which would be the last question for these examples. 11w squared minus 14w plus 3. Again, anytime you have a coefficient in front of the variable squared, you can draw the x like normal. Only difference is multiply that coefficient by the last number. So 11 times 3 would be 33, and that goes on top of the x or on top of the diamond. the middle number 14 does have a negative sign, would be negative 14. And again, we want to find two numbers that multiply to get 33, and the same two numbers add to get negative 14. Those two numbers would be negative 11 and negative 3. Negative 11 times negative 3 would be 33, and negative 11 plus negative 3 would be negative 14. Keep in mind from here, if you have a coefficient, going back to our definitions, you have to rewrite this so you can factor by grouping. 11w squared stays the same. The negative 14 changes into negative 11 and negative 3. So that would be negative 11w and minus 3w. It's still the same as negative 14w, but this allows us to factor by grouping. The plus 3 comes down. Factor the first two terms, factor the second two terms, and then you'll have the answer. First two terms both have 11, and they both have a w, so you can take 11w out of each of those. 11 divided by 11 would be 1. W squared, take away w, would be 1w or just w. Next term, you have 11 divided by 11, which would be 1. The w's cancel out, so you just have a minus from above, minus 1. Next two terms, we have negative 3 and positive 3. You could take a 1 out of each of these, but this w we want to match up with positive w, so you actually want to take out a negative 1. And 3 goes in each of these, you can take out a negative 3. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 would be positive 1, and you have the w left. And 3 divided by negative 3 would be minus 1. Again, by taking a negative 3 out, both of these parentheses match up, and we can get our answer. If they don't match up, you have to go back and factor the rest out. Final answer, the two parentheses that match up, w minus 1, and whatever is left over, 11w minus 3. The last section today is titled Factor. Ax squared plus bx plus c by guess and check. Two definitions or two steps for solving the same type of questions but by guess and check is that first we will guess numbers that multiply to get A and B, or actually C. Guess numbers that multiply to get A and C. Second step to see if we have the right answer is check by FOIL. To see if it adds up to B. So again, we'll solve these same type of questions we just did, factoring ax squared plus bx plus c. But rather than using the diamond or X method and factor by grouping, we can try and guess numbers that will be A and guess numbers that will be C, and see if that adds up by foiling to get B. Our first problem is 6x squared plus 25x plus 11. And again, to guess and check, we're basically going to try and guess the two parentheses. That will be our final answer. We need a number in front of each parentheses with the variable x, and we need a number at the end of each parentheses. The first two numbers will be the first two numbers that we guess that add up to a, that multiply to get a. So for examples, number that multiply to get a could be 3x and 2x. 3x times 2x would be 6x squared. You could also make this 2x and 3x. You could also do 6 and 1. Any combination, but we're just guessing and checking two numbers to see if it multiplies to get 6. The last number 11, which is c, we need two numbers that multiply to get c. In this case, there's only two numbers that multiply to get 11. That's 11 and 1. I'll put plus 1 for the first parentheses and plus 11 for the second parentheses. But again, by guess and check, you can move these numbers around to see if it matches up. This is one possible answer. To check the answer, you want to check by FOIL to see if it adds up to b. We need the middle number to be 25x. So if we did do foiling on this, 3x times 2x would be 6x squared. The last number, 1 times 11, would be 11. And we have to see if it matches up with the 25x by doing the outside terms and the inside terms. In this case, 3x times 11 would be 33x, and 1 times 2x would be 2x. If you add these up, this is 35x, but we want 25x, which means this answer would be incorrect for the guess and check. From there, again, you can just guess and check to see if you get the right answer. The right answer, again, would add up to 25x. For our next guess and check, we can leave the first two numbers the same, 3x and 2x, but we can try switching the 1 and 11. I'll put plus 11 first, and then plus 1 second. We still have 3x times 2x is 6x squared. 11 times 1 would still be 11. If we do the outside terms and the inside terms, 3x times 1 would be 3x. 11 times 2x would be 22x. And if you do 3x plus 2x, that adds to 25x, which is the correct answer we're looking for, which means our final answer, guess and check, is correct. Would be 3x plus 11 and 2x plus 1. This again is just a different method to solve by guess and check instead of using the diameter x method. We'll try one more example, solving by guess and check. Last problem for this section that we'll do guess and check on is 16m squared plus 26m plus 9. Again, we're going to guess two parentheses and check and see if it foils and multiplies out to get these numbers. The first number is 16m squared. So we need two numbers in each of the parentheses that multiply to get 16. We could try 4m and 4m. We also need two numbers that multiply to get 9. You could do 3 and 3. You could do 9 and 1. And again, guess and check. You're just picking two numbers and see if they work. So again, 4m times 4m is 16m squared. 3 times 3 would be 9. And now we have to check and see if it's 26. If you do the outside and inside terms, 4m times 3 would be 12m. And 3 times 4m would be 12m also. Adding those up, it's 24m, which is not 26m, which means this answer would be incorrect. Guess and check. You'll basically guess until you get the right answer, guess until it adds up to 26m. We could try 4m again, like we had before, but instead of 3 and 3, you can try 9 and 1. And again, 4 times 4 would be the 16. 9 times 1 would be the 9, and now we have to check for the 26. Outside and inside terms, 4m times 1, and 9 times 4. This adds up to 40m, which again is not 26m, which means this one would be incorrect. And again, guess and check. Sometimes you can get the answer right off. Sometimes it takes you a little while, but you can either use this method or the method that we just did in the previous section. If we're trying guess and check again, instead of 4 and 4, we can try different numbers. We could try 8m and 2m, because again 8 times 2 would be 16. You could also do 16 and 1, lots of different combinations. For the 9, we had the same combinations we had before, 3 and 3 or 9 and 1. First time, let's try 3 and 3. And again, 8 times 2 would be the 16, 3 times 3 would be the 9. Checking the outside and inside terms to see if they add up to 26. 8 times 3 is 24, and 3 times 2 would be 6. This would add up to 30, which again is not 26, so this would not be the right answer. If we try the same problem we just did, 8m and 2m, but instead of 3 and 3, this time we can try 9 and 1, because again 9 times 1 would be 9, 8 times 2 is still 16. Check to see if it's the right answer. The outside and inside terms have to add up to 26. 8 times 1 would be 8m, 9 times 2 would be 18m, and this time if you add those up, that adds up to 26m. So again, as long as it adds up to the middle term, this would be the correct answer for the problem. 8m plus 9 and 2m plus 1.